Hi everybody, it's Miss Rossi. Today we're going to be starting a project about the solar system. What you'll be needing today is your solar system papers from your art folder. This should be one big white piece of paper and then another big black piece of paper. We don't need the label, but you should be left with two pieces of paper. We're only going to be using the white paper today. So if you want to keep your label on the black one and put that back in your art folder, you can. Or you can just put it in a safe place so we can use it next week. If you cannot find these papers, you just need one white piece of paper for this week to get started. We're also going to be using either washable markers or watercolor paints today. Just like when we did our Paul Klee castle project, where we painted and colored a white piece of paper and then we used that to make our castle, we're doing the same kind of thing today, where we're going to make our white paper nice and colorful using all of our different materials, and then we will cut this up and create our solar system out of it next week. I'm going to use mostly watercolors to make my picture, but again, if you don't have watercolors, you can use water with some washable markers to turn it into watercolor paint, or you can just use any other material you have at home to add color. If you want to just use crayons, markers, color pencils, or anything else you have to add color, that will work. All we need to do today really is make a really bright, beautiful, colorful piece of paper that we can use to make planets next week. So today all we're going to be doing is adding color to our paper to create almost like an abstract painting that will later turn into our planets. So you can think in your head what kind of colors you would like to use to create all the different planets in your solar system. If you want to use colors like our real planets in our own solar system, you can do that. Or if you want to come up with your own kinds of planets and have your own outer space picture of a different kind of solar system, you can do that as well. So maybe if you're going for something more realistic to our solar system, you'd want to create a section of your paper with blues and greens like Earth. Maybe you'd want some reds and oranges for some of our other planets like Mars. Or you can just totally use whatever colors you would like and cut them up next week to make your own kinds of planets. So today we don't want to be drawing planets on our paper. If you want to make different sections of your paper different colors to make it easier to cut out specific colored planets, you can do that. But I do think it's fun to just let our colors mix and blend together in an abstract way on our paper, so then when we make our planets next week, we have these crazy colorful designs that we can use that are totally unique and original. So since all we're doing today is just fully coloring in our paper, you can decide how you would like to start it. I think sometimes it's easiest to use things like your markers to separate your paper in a bunch of different sections, or if you wouldn't just go straight in with your paints and just start painting and see where it takes you, you can do that also. I'm going to start off with a few of my markers. I think I'm going to use bigger markers since I have such a big paper here today. And with my markers, I am just going to start to color in different spaces. Now I want my marker to be nice and dark. I don't want a lot of white spaces within the colors, so then there's a lot of ink on my page that can spread out and mix with the other sections. Now I think I want this corner to be some warm colors. So those are our reds, our oranges, and our yellows. So I am just going to add some little sections of red in there. I'm going to take my orange marker and add some of that in there too. So right now I am imagining like a more, I guess, like fiery kind of planet for this space. And then let's add a little bit of yellow on there too. And now while I didn't leave any white space in the sections of my color, like there's no little white spots left in my red or in my orange, I am leaving some white space on my paper so those colors have some room to blend together later on when I add water. But I still want to make sure there's a nice amount of ink all in this area so it can mix together once water is added. I think I want some yellow down here that is going to carry into my blues and greens. So I'm going to put some cool colors towards the bottom. So our cool colors are our blues, greens, and purples. They are colors that remind us of things that are cold. I think they remind me of like snow and ice. So I have some blues Going to add some purple in here as well. And like I said before, I'm not really drawing anything. I'm just filling in little sections of color that will get blended together later on. I like how that side of my paper is looking. I am going to do the rest with my watercolors, I think. So I'm going to put my markers away for now. If you do not have watercolor paints, you can do the entire thing with your markers by just creating those sections and patterns like we just did across your entire paper. Or if you just have watercolors, you can do the entire thing with your watercolor paints. To start with my watercolors, I am just going to start on this marker half while it's still pretty wet from the markers. I am going to swirl my brush around in my cup of water, wiping it off on the edge, and then I can just paint right over the top of my markers, and you're going to start to see those blend together. So now my red is already blending together with my yellow and creating orange, because our red and our yellow are our primary colors, and when those mix together, they do make orange. And by just placing the water and blending it out on top of all of these markers, I'm going to get some really interesting looking mixtures and effects that start to happen when all of these colors get to blend together. Now I'm adding little sections of water at a time and spreading them out carefully, swirling my paintbrush. I don't want to push too hard going back and forth because you might make a hole in your paper. If you think one area is too light or there's not a lot of color coming out of your markers, you can always let it dry and then add some more marker on top once your paper is fully dry. You don't want to add marker while your paper is still wet, and then add water once you add kind of like a second layer of marker. I'm going to go down in my cool color section, and now I see my blue is mixing with my yellow and I'm making some green right there. It is so much fun to see all of the different colors mixed together. And like our red and yellow, our blue and yellow are primary colors, and when they mix together, they make green. So it's really exciting to see that happen right in front of our eyes, and we're getting a rainbow assortment of all of our different colors today. I am continuously washing my paintbrush in my water so it doesn't get too muddy and everything doesn't turn to brown on my paper. If I keep adding some fresh water on top, it will keep those colors looking nice and bright. All right, that looks pretty good. So I got to blend together all of my markers on that side of my paper. I'm going to do kind of like the same thing on this side, but with my watercolor paints, where I am just going to add different sections of my watercolor paints all over, let those blend and mix together to create a nice abstract picture that I can use to make my planets next week. To use my watercolor paints, I am just wetting my paintbrush and swirling it carefully in my palette. I'm always making sure to wipe my paintbrush off on the edge of my cup so it does not drip all over the place. We don't want too much water everywhere. And I am being super gentle, swirling carefully in my watercolor tray and then placing those colors nice and carefully on my paper. I don't want to jam my brush into my watercolor palette, and I don't want to press it too hard on my paper again because I don't want to create a hole. And I also don't want to damage my paintbrush. So I'm just going to fill in the rest of my paper using my watercolor paints. If you want to carry your watercolor paints over the top of some of your markers to add even more decorations and details over there, you can always do that. It's totally up to you what you want your picture to look like when you're finished. We just want to make sure that our picture is fully colored in all of the white space is covered up so that we can make some really bright and colorful planets next time. And the last thing I'm doing now that my paper is fully covered in with all of my different colors from my markers and from my watercolors, I'm just adding some little detail lines in certain areas with different kinds of brush strokes of different colors, just swooping in through where my colors are just to create some more interesting parts to see when I make this into planets. You can always do this with markers once your paper is dry, or even with crayons or colored pencils, but it's always nice to add some extra little details so your planets have some other textures and colors in them. All right, I think I'm happy with the way that my picture looks. I am going to let it dry, and then I'm going to save it in my art folder with my black paper for next week. Since we will be finishing our project next time, you do not need to hand anything in this week. Just keep all of your papers with you for next time so we can finish. I hope you have fun creating your abstract paintings today and getting to watch all of the different colors blend together on your papers. Try your best, have fun, and get creative. I'll see you soon. Bye!